Welcome to the Happy Doc, the voice of fulfilled physicians. This show is about bringing inspirational, creative, successful, and happy health professionals to you. Get ready to learn how you can be a happy doctor too. Hello, Happy Doc family. This is your host, Dr. Taylor Brana. And before we begin the introduction for our next guest, I do want to mention our sponsor for this episode. Locumstory.com shares the ups, downs, and all-around adventures physicians have while doing locum tenens assignments. Whether you are fighting burnout, want to see the world, or just need a change of pace, locum tenens may be just what you need. Learn more about how locum tenens works, trends in the industry, and read inspiring physician stories at locumstory.com. That's L-O-C-U-M story.com. And now for our next guest, we have Physician on Fire. So the Physician on Fire, he is an anesthesiologist, but he also has a website, physicianonfire.com, which is a personal finance website created to inform and inspire both physicians and patients with insightful writing from a physician who has attained financial independence. And we're going to learn what financial independence is in this episode. And on the website, we also learn about the ability to retire early. The site has a triple aim: to leave visitors enlightened, educated, and entertained. So I've definitely checked out the website. The blog posts are extremely informative, and you're going to learn a lot about how you can improve your finances. In this episode, we're going to learn about quite a few things. Number one, the fun fact about Physician on Fire's early wrestling career. Number two, how Physician on Fire stumbled into financial independence. 3, the simple habits Physician on Fire had that aided him on achieving financial independence. 4, how you can be financially independent in 15 years as a physician. 5, how achieving financial independence has impacted his personal life, ability to negotiate at work, and much more. And lastly, the concept of geographical arbitrage and how it can significantly impact your trajectory towards financial freedom. Now, those are some of the things we touched on in this episode. It was a very enlightening conversation. I learned a lot. And I think what we're going to get out of this episode is the sense that we are very much in control of our financial independence. We are able to take actions today to plan out and to improve the way we use money. And finances are definitely something that impacts the way you view the world, your lifestyle, and it provides choices. And we're going to get a lot of that and more in this episode. Please enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Happy Doc. I am feeling really fired up right now. Wow. I'm feeling extremely fired up.
And that's because coming at you?
A little bit of heat. I just feel it. It's coming at me. And actually, I know why. It's because I'm with the Physician on Fire. And I can't even drop the name because we're staying anonymous. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you can call me POF if you want, or just Physician on Fire if you are into long names.
So we're with POF today. I'm really excited to have you. And to start us off, I'm very curious about the name. Where did Physician on Fire start?
So it's funny. I was just at the White Coat Investors Physician Wellness Conference, and someone came up to me and they said, I found you're much more humble in person than I expected. And I was like, oh, like, do I come off as being kind of a braggart? And she said, well, no, but just the name, like Physician on Fire, like you're some big deal, like El Fuego. And I was like, oh, no, it's just an acronym. So FIRE, it stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And so that's kind of the theme of my blog, more the financial independence part and how and why you should look into obtaining that and make that one of your priorities. And I just thought the whole Physician on Fire, it's like a nice alliteration and a nice, sort of a nice visual or maybe a bad visual. But with the logo I got, I think it's a pretty good visual.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. No, I think, it's very catchy and anyone's going to remember it. So I love the name. I love how it actually means something. So you started this how long ago?
It was January of 2016, so a couple years and a couple months ago.
Wow. That's amazing, actually, because I've definitely heard you from multiple people. So you've definitely caught on. That's fantastic. I love that. So before we get into kind of the juicy questions I want to ask you, I would love to ask you a fun fact today. And that would be, people have definitely heard of you, okay? But what do you think is kind of a fun fact about you that people might not know when it comes to being the Physician on Fire?
Fun fact, I don't know to silence my cell phone ahead of a podcast interview, so we've taken care of that. I throw a lot of those fun facts out there, so I'm going to have to think about this one. Like I was going to say, well, I do curling every Tuesday night, 5 months of the year. But people that follow me know that because I tend to feature that because it's one of those unique things.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's one of those things that's kind of unique to the northern part of the country here where I live. But a different fun fact. So in high school, I was a wrestler, and I wrestled 103, and as a sophomore, 112. As a junior, I was a little guy, and I was a really bad wrestler. I lost a lot of matches because I kind of came into wrestling and then backed off and did it again. But I decided to go out for the team my junior year because we had a really good team and not a very good 112 pounder. So I figured I could probably make varsity and help the team out. So I went out there and lost a whole bunch of matches. But the team did well enough that we went to state. So I got to wrestle at the state tournament representing my team, despite having a record of like 4-20 on the year.
I love that. That's amazing. No, that, I would not have known that any other place. I think that is a really fun fact. And was wrestling something that you were always interested in, or did someone, get excited? Did you get excited from seeing it, or? Yeah,
I had a brother a year and a half older than me, so I kind of had to be a little bit tough just to defend myself from him. And he was always quite a bit bigger than me. So I actually started wrestling in kindergarten. And then I quit in about fourth grade, but my sixth grade homeschool teacher, or not homeschool, sorry, my sixth grade homeroom teacher was our high school wrestling coach. And I really liked him, so I thought I'd, go out for his team. And I wrestled 7th to 9th grade and then 10th and 11th. So, yeah.
I love that. No, I mean, it's really great to know that you have that athletic background. Actually, I'm curious, do you think that being an athlete early on has impacted your life later?
Well, I would stress that I was definitely not very athletic, which is why I lost most matches that I went out there for. Yeah. Although I never got pinned that entire year until our very, very last match. I did learn a lot from wrestling, even if I wasn't particularly good at it. You certainly learn to kind of give your best, to keep trying, even when you're beat down, to just to endure and know that you can have a good outcome from something that maybe isn't so fun in the moment.
I actually love that analogy. I mean, when we think about medicine, that's it's very difficult throughout the whole process, and you might feel like you're losing. And I think you're definitely on the other end of it, where you've gotten a lot out of it. Do you feel like there's a corollary there with wrestling and medicine?
Sure. I mean, in practices are really tough. You would run and then you would wrestle for minutes at a time, and you're basically using every muscle in your body most of the time you're out there. So, the basketball players thought, oh, we're out there for 48 minutes and running the whole time. I'm like, yeah, but I'm using like my legs, arms, neck, and muscles you didn't even know you had, all out for maybe it's only 6 minutes, but it's the toughest 6 minutes of your life.
Wow. I love that. Wow. So that was very interesting. I love that fact about you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving forward, so you went through this medical journey. Why did you choose anesthesia as opposed to another specialty?
I didn't go into medical school with any notion that I would want to be an anesthesiologist. If anything, I thought I might be a pediatrician, or later on radiology appealed to me. But it wasn't until I got into rotations that I really got to see what the day-to-day job was like, got to work directly with physicians that were doing that job and talk to them and ask them questions. And anesthesia scared me at first. It just looked complicated. You've got this machine, the ventilator, and all the dials, and yeah, that just looked really technical. But once I actually sat down in the room and things happened at a normal pace that they happen in a teaching hospital, I realized, okay, this is actually manageable, and the docs are really happy. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that you get an immediate result. Mm-hmm. It shares that attribute with emergency medicine in some ways. I think someone comes to you, they have something that needs to happen then on that day, and you give them what they need, and you get them through that safely and hopefully reasonably comfortably. And then you go home at the end of the day, and your job is basically done. You don't take too much home with you unless you had something particularly bad happen, which doesn't happen too often given the safety of anesthesia in this day and age. Yeah.
Sure. Great. So I think it's interesting. You weren't 100% sure, but with experience, you learned that it was a good fit for you. And I'm curious. So we're going to be talking about financial independence. I'm curious. Do you feel like the field of anesthesia has been an important aspect of you being able to build out financial independence in your life?
I would say yes, for sure. I don't have to tell you that anesthesia pays better on average than most other specialties. Sure. It's not at the top, but it's probably in the top quartile. And it also is one where you're not automatically working necessarily. Now, I think the average is pretty high in terms of hours, maybe 50 to 60, but you also have the opportunity to take call and earn extra money. And it's easy to do locums in anesthesia. Mm-hmm. And that's how I started my career. And even once I took a permanent job, I still worked more than my share of locums, even in weeks off, or took extra weekends. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get into a kind of an hourly pay situation where you, again, much like emergency medicine, if you want to work hard to make more money, you can. And early on, I wasn't chasing financial independence. I honestly didn't know what that was until just a few years ago when I read about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, we have that actually when I ran the numbers. But I knew I wanted to make some money and get ahead and make hay while the sun was shining. And yeah, so early on, I worked hard and saved quite a bit of money, saving for something. I just didn't know what at the time.
Wow, that's great. So it kind of sounds to me like, in a way, you stumbled into financial independence in a way. Like you weren't.
I really did.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like necessarily it was specifically the goal, but it was just something that you like you said, you kind of crunched the numbers. Can you tell me, like, and for the listeners, what is the definition or working definition of financial independence?
Yep, there are different ways to describe it, but the simplest way to put it is that you're in a financial position in which you don't have to work for money to support the lifestyle that you want. And that can come from different income streams if you're into passive income and real estate. But the most common definition is having a multiple of your anticipated future expenses. And let's say you spend $100,000 a year, then you need at least 25 times that much. And that's based on a 4% withdrawal rate starting out. So if you want to spend $100,000 a year, you should accumulate about $2.5 million in assets that will provide for your retirement. And if you're retiring early, it's probably not a bad idea to overshoot that number a little bit, because you're going to have a longer time frame in which you will be spending that money or the returns from that money compared to the 30 years or so that 4% withdrawal rate is based upon. And I could talk for the next hour or two about it, but
sure.
That 4% is based on pretty much worst case scenarios, at least based on the past, on what we've seen, like the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So it's I wouldn't say it's foolproof. It's good to have backup plans and in a way to either cut back on spending or increase income or make some income after retirement if you're going to rely on it. But the odds of success are something north of 97, 98% with numbers like that.
That's amazing. No, and I think it's just important for people to understand that framework, because I mean, myself and I know plenty of people are definitely looking to have a financially independent life, especially if I look at it from kind of, my own personal perspective. There's a lot of things we want to do in life, You know, we want to maximize our ability to have some time to enjoy things other than clinical medicine. And so I think that's a really, really great goal. I'm going to talk to you about a book I'm reading actually right now. So I'm reading Ray Dalio's book. It's called Principles. And it's a fantastic book. But one of the things he talks about is successful people tend to have strong principles or habits, things that have led them to be in a position such as, the one they're in right now. And you have achieved financial independence. What do you think, looking at yourself and what you've been doing, what are some habits or things you've been doing that have allowed you to find financial independence?
Right. I'm not like one of Tim Ferriss's 70% of people who meditate or have some morning ritual like that.
Yeah.
My morning ritual is either sleep in because I'm post-call like today or get up at 5:15 and hurry into the hospital.
Sure.
But there's certainly an amount of discipline that I've had all along in terms of saving. I wouldn't say necessarily in terms of not spending, because we have spent on certain things in life that bring us joy, like travel, which we do quite a bit,
sure.
and having a nice home and that sort of thing. But I think just I've never been one to live paycheck to paycheck, and I've never looked at money in an account as something I should spend. It's something I'd rather save.
Sure.
And I think I got more pleasure out of watching my account balances grow than I would have out of a luxury automobile or some kind of a really nice watch, or
sure.
There's a lot of ways to spend money in this world. And no, I'd rather save for a rainy day, which turns out to be my 40s when I'm now in a position. And it sounds like a ton of money, right? Like if you're an intern, like yourself,
yeah,
2.5 million. That's just, it's hard to fathom,
of
right?
Course, yeah.
But once and I've gotten lucky. We've had a really good run in the stock market over the last 8-9 years now, which pretty much mirrors my investing time frame. I finished residency in 2006. And so those first few years, the market dropped, but I was putting money in, buying mutual funds while they were on the way down. I was buying at the bottom, and I was buying on the way back up. So that actually worked out in my favor, since it did recover and then some.
Yeah.
So I guess the habit's really just been paying myself first, which is kind of a Dave Ramsey-ism, I think. But I've done that from day one, and been disciplined in paying off loans and even paying down mortgage and all of that.
Yeah. And, there's definitely absolutely a practicality to finances. It doesn't have to be so complicated in paying things off. And that's really sound advice. So, there's going to be listeners here today that obviously want to be on the right track in terms of finances. What is, let's say you're starting today, and you're kind of even in my shoes. I'm an intern, and, I have a set of, $200K plus loans. And I'm working through the process, and I didn't have the background of maybe having family help me out as much. What is something you tell someone like me to kind of get on the right track?
You don't you're not going to see it happen overnight, obviously. And like I said, it's a big number out there. But of course, the less you spend, the less you need later on. So keep that in mind too. Mm-hmm. Now, I threw that number out there because it's really easy to multiply 100 by anything. So, and you probably have your loans in, what do you have your loans doing right now?
Yeah. So for example,
finance or going for PSLF or?
Yeah. I mean, so my main portion of my loans was consolidated. And so that's, with the federal government currently. And then I did have a set of, so that's around I'll be completely upfront, just because I know I'm playing around with the same numbers, around $220,000, and then I have approximately 40 in private loans, which I refinanced,
perfect.
And I have a pretty good interest rate on, and so I've kind of been paying off the private loans, trying to eliminate that as soon as possible, with the minimal amount of extra cash I have. And then
which isn't going to be much.
But step towards the right area. And then consolidating. And then so the in terms of PSLF, I've been filing that every single month and kind of doing that process.
Yep. So that's a good start. And then once you actually finish residency and you do get your first job and you're making maybe 5-6 times as much money as you are now, that's when you need to be careful, because it's easy to fall into a trap of buying the quote unquote doctor home and taking the most expensive vacation package you can find, to the furthest reaches of the world. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take vacation. That's very important, but you don't have to spend $30,000 to have a good one.
Sure.
My mantra is live on half of your take home pay. And that is, that's asking you to save more than the standard save 20% of your gross income, which is probably 30 to 35% of your take home pay, right? Because one is before tax, one is after tax.
Sure.
I'm talking about, you get a paycheck, half of that goes to paying down debt, like your student loans.
Yeah.
And then half you can live on. And once your debts are gone, or while you're paying off debt, I should say, you should also be investing. You certainly want to invest enough to get any match in a 401k. You want to, once you're making more money and you're in a higher tax bracket, you want to put some money in tax deferred accounts like a 401k or 403b, or you may have access to a 457b, et cetera. But yeah, if your spending matches your investments, then you're in a good position to reach financial independence in about 15 years with kind of typical, slightly conservative estimates on your returns on those investments.
Huh. That's, if you say it like that and you're saying you're actually reaching financial independence, that's actually a very uplifting comment you just made.
Yeah. So from the time you're debt free or at a net worth of zero, which may mean 100,000 invested and 100,000 in debt, I think it's about a 7% return on your money, which a mostly stock portfolio would have given you a bit more than that in the past, but it may give you a bit less in the future. We don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the math works out to about 15 years. And of course, by virtue of spending less, your target is lower than someone who is living on 70% and saving 30%. It would take 25 or 30 years, which is a typical physician career, but not all physicians are typical.
Yeah.
You may not want to work the entire time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those tips. No, I really appreciate that because, that's actually a very, what you said was very uplifting. Like I feel good that if, you kind of take the right steps and work towards it, it's definitely attainable, which is exciting. Yeah, that was a great comment. So I would like us to discuss your blog. I was scrolling through it, and there's a lot of interesting articles that I saw there. You have things such as like the Sunday Best, which is you have on there is like the curated articles, some of your favorite articles you've seen. Is that that's weekly, correct?
Yep, every Sunday.
Every Sunday, perfect.
Yep, I share 10 articles that I've found that I think would appeal to my readers, and I've gotten a pretty good sense of what they like because I can see what people are clicking on every week, and I know what topics are popular, and I know which ones are not so popular.
I love that.
So I've been able to cater to my readers by doing that.
Great. So you started this blog and you've had this journey. First, I'd like to focus on what are some things you've learned, personally from running a blog.
I've learned a little more about business in general, which I've had no training in. But at first, I just learned to maybe be a little bit of a better writer. And I think by practicing, you become better and you learn what works and what doesn't. And then I think I've learned a little bit more about the motivations of business, how marketing works. And I think I see little things here and there when I'm looking through a magazine or watching a program or just talking to someone that works outside of our field. And I recognize little things that would have totally escaped me before. So
sure.
I know that's a really vague answer, but there's a motivation behind so many things that you maybe really didn't think much about before.
Yeah. No, and I'm curious. So, you kind of learned, the business skills a little bit later in your career, and I'm starting to definitely learn them now. Do you think there's an advantage to learning kind of some of these entrepreneurial skills or, how to build a blog or some other service earlier on in your career?
It depends on what you want to do. I don't know that it's ever a bad idea, but I also think if you are very passionate about medicine and you're going to be in academics and people are going to take care of the business for you. You just want to focus on your clinical career. I don't think that's necessarily terrible either.
Sure.
The more you are going to be thinking about side gigs or private practice or doing a podcast or a blog, the more some business knowledge can help. But you can also learn it on the fly, and that's not the primary reason I started writing either. I really just wanted to see if I can build a community, see if I could write well enough for people to want to read what I was writing, and if it happened to get to a place where some income could be realized, that's kind of a nice bonus. And I started this after I was financially independent, so it's not money that I need today or in the future. So I actually donate half of my profits to charities, and that's kind of a nice thing that drives me to try to grow it even bigger than I maybe wouldn't have that incentive if I hadn't made that pledge. Yeah,
definitely. And there's when we set up this interview, there was one thing I asked on there, which is what's something you'd want to mention, and I loved that I saw that the thing you wanted me to mention was your charitable mission on your website. That's you being in your position, you're able to give to people, and that's fantastic. So I'm going to drop it right here for everyone to just so everyone knows. It's if you go into the Physician on Fire website, it's www.physicianonfire.com/charitable-mission. And if you go there, like he said, he's donating half of his profits to multiple organizations, and that's absolutely amazing, and definitely something to be that's very commendable of you. And I mean, I sincerely appreciate that you did that.
Thanks. And I finally got myself signed up for a medical mission as well. So my family and I will be going to Honduras in May to a place that is a compound with a large orphanage, and it also has a small surgery center / overnight kind of mini hospital.
Wow.
And I'll be doing anesthesia for a week, and my wife and boys will stay on the compound with us, and they will work around the property, probably mostly playing with other kids and doing activities and maybe helping out in the kitchen and cafeteria, that sort of thing. So that'll be a really, really cool experience. My kids are growing up in a, we're not big spenders, but we're pretty well off for Americans and very well off for world citizens. So we want them to see other parts of the world where people aren't so well off, and just get a little more of a worldly experience, and this will be a good step in that direction.
Wow, wonderful. I love that. That's great. So if you were to give, one tip for doctors today to reach towards financial independence, what would it be?
One tip, and this isn't going to work for everyone, but recognize that there's this fairly unique aspect to medicine I call it geographic arbitrage, where you tend to make more money in certain parts of the country that cost less to live in. And so the average salaries that are highest, those exist in the Midwest, the Great Plains, basically what people on the coast might call flyover country, which I don't agree with so much. And the places where you tend to make less money and, of course, have much higher costs of living are, New York, Northern and Southern California, Miami, places like that. And so if you don't, need to live in one of those high cost of living places, you might make 30 or 50% more money and spend half as much and reach financial independence twice as fast if you're willing to, live in, St. Louis or anywhere within a 1,000-mile radius of there.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, even like Dallas compared to Seattle or something, like it's incredible how the cost of living and the salaries are very different, and you come out ahead in both ways in Dallas for the most part.
Well, I mean, and I've been to Dallas. I've been to those areas of Texas, and it's a really nice area. Like I mean, it's it's a nice place to live. People are genuinely pretty nice over there. No, that's an interesting, as you bring that up, I actually haven't heard someone say that before. And so that's a very interesting way of looking at those ways to kind of capitalize on those differences within the geography. That's great.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, if you look at, let's say, a city where you might make, after taxes, $200,000, but it costs $150,000 to live the lifestyle you want. Well, you might make $350,000 after taxes, but you're only spending $100,000. Now the difference is one place you're saving $50,000 a year, the other place you're saving, what did I say, like $250,000 a year or something. I mean, it can be huge. You might save 3 to 5 times as much by making, 70% more.
Wow.
And then it's not all geographic too. Obviously, there are jobs within cities like Philadelphia or anywhere else where you can make more money. So I'm not saying money is the only thing that matters, but it's good to give yourself options because you may not have the same passion for medicine. Your whole worldview may change in 10, 15, 20 years. And you may not have the same youthful exuberance that you did when you were an intern, a medical student, et cetera. Yeah. So think about those things.
No, I love that. That's a great piece of advice and tip. So you're in a position of financial independence, and that's offered you, I'm sure, some opportunities and things that other people might not have. What do you think it has done for your personal quality of life, or in terms of the ways you can act in the world now?
Yeah, I'll kind of give you 2 answers, and they're sort of related. When I started reading about financial independence, one of the things that really drew me to this concept was the fact that you tend to enjoy your job more because you are now working by choice. And every day that you show up, it's because you want to be there, right? Because by definition, you don't actually need the income to support the lifestyle. But what I've found is kind of the opposite. The little things that I think I used to tolerate because, well, it's part of the job. What am I going to do? I've got to learn these new epic shortcuts. I've got to fill out these templates and I've got to do whatever, go in at 3 a.m. for an epidural, 2 or 3 nights in a row because that's what I signed up for. And now that I know I don't necessarily need that income, it's a little more frustrating to do those things. It's not quite as easy to convince myself that this is what I want to be doing with my life and my time. Yeah. So part B, I have actually transitioned to a part-time job. So I work less, 40% less than I was working. And I've been on this schedule for 6 months now, and it's going really well. My family and I we recently came back from a 3-week trip to Hawaii, which was very nice. But like I said, we also want to give our kids a little more of a worldly experience. And so we went to Mexico, Guanajuato for 3 weeks in November. That was our first trip. And we did a Spanish immersion thing with the school and just kind of stayed in one place and lived more like, I wouldn't say lived like locals, but, we kind of integrated a little bit. Yeah. And it was a nice little slow travel experience. So, yeah, I definitely have seen my quality of life go up since I realized it was high time I took advantage of the financial independence that I've been touting, for a couple of years now online. Sure.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, there's simple things, right? Like you went to go on vacation or, switching over to part-time, but that, you have those options. And I think that's, definitely something that people look forward to is being able to choose their direction. And you're definitely, saying that.
Right. And I didn't think it would be really feasible in my current job, just the way it's set up. We're a small group. And, but I knew I kind of was, I wouldn't say negotiating. There wasn't much of a negotiation, but I was in a position where I didn't have to stay if I didn't want to. And so I could say, I think I'd like to work part-time. And then, they found a way to make that happen, And if they had said no, I could have, I had the power to walk away if I chose, which I'm not ready to do, but eventually that'll happen.
Yeah. So you mentioned reading books on finances. What are some books that you might recommend to our listeners in this space?
A really good one I read recently was called How to Think About Money by Jonathan Clements. And I wrote a book review with that same title in a blog post on my site recently. And then I met the author at the White Coat Investors Physician Wellness Conference just a week or 2 ago. But it's a simple 150 pages. You can get through it in maybe 2 hours. And it's really good perspective. He gives you some evidence-based behavioral finance information. And that really kind of is surprising, some of the results from some pretty good studies on money and happiness and spending and saving, and also gives you some pretty simple investing tips. And it's a good, quick read. The White Coat Investor's book, again, it's just self-titled White Coat Investor. Yep. It is a good one for medical students and residents. Have you read that one?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So it's a nice overview of a lot of different topics, including insurance and student loans and investing, of course, too. So those two I'd put high up there. And, most people aren't that interested, not as interested as I am in this stuff. So I'm not going to give you a 400-page, deep tome on that. But yeah, I think those two are both quick, easy reads that you could hammer out in one evening.
Great. I love that. That's awesome. Thank you for offering that.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of understanding, what makes people fulfilled, what brings them energy in life. What are some things that you do that help, that you do when you're stressed, or things that bring you a sense of, more energy when you do those things?
I've got a couple of kids, 2 boys. They're 7 and 9 years old, and they like to burn off steam. So I wouldn't say I've always been good with exercise, but I found that when I do exercise, I do feel better, and it is a good way to blow off steam. And now they're old enough where we can do things together that are pretty rigorous, and we've even got them running with us. So like we've done 5Ks together.
Wow.
In the last couple of years now. Even when they were like 5-6 years old, they could run like that with us, and and just going sledding or swimming, whatever it is, usually family activities. That's where I want to be if I'm not working or blogging is with my family.
That's great. I love that. And in terms of fulfillment, what do you think fulfillment is, or what is it to you?
I think it's a feeling of contentment and joy, and I guess feeling like there isn't anything missing, and that you're lacking in your life. And that's going to mean different things to different people. But I think I'm still working on it, still figuring that part out, trying to figure out if medicine factors into that or not. I know for a lot of people that are going to be listening, it absolutely will. But I actually took 6 weeks off recently, and now I'm working double duty in March to make up for it. But I'll be honest, I didn't miss coming to work in that time.
Yeah.
Which I guess maybe that answers the question for me. And it's a little bit sad, I suppose, but I feel like I'm in a place where I certainly have a lot of, I'm very grateful for the career that I have had, and I enjoy the patients and the people that I work with. But, just yesterday I was on call, and I sat down to play a card game with my son, and he showed me how to play, and we just started playing, and then I got called in.
Yeah.
And then I told my wife, this case should be over by dinner time, so I'll see you, probably 5:36-ish. Keep my food warm if you can. Well, then we got an add-on after that, and an add-on after that. And I get home just before midnight, and I'm like, this is not that fulfilling, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm providing a nice service to people, and I'm getting well compensated for that. But maybe it's not how I want to spend the next 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think a theme, and obviously I'm sure you talk about this plenty, in terms of your blog, is when you have saved and you have created this lifestyle for yourself, you have options, you've created choices. And, that's part of it is now you realize, like, I really don't have to do that add-on procedure anymore. I really don't need to do this anymore. But you've built that in your life. And, that was, again, sometimes we tend to, I do this too, is like, we'll sensationalize certain aspects of life. But you've just been very consistent in saving and doing what you've been doing. And it's offered you those options. Yeah,
it's interesting. I for a long time, I would, I believed that I truly loved my job. And, I don't dislike it, but I've just found that now that I know it's totally optional, I think I may have liked earning money as much or more as I liked working. And I never really separated the two. But having financial independence has allowed me to kind of take a step back and evaluate what I really enjoy from work and what I enjoy when I'm not working. And I still love doing nerve blocks. I I enjoy, meeting the patients and their families and successful outcomes, which we have 99% of the time. But at the end of the day, if I could choose to have a work day or a stay-at-home day, I'll stay home.
Yeah, 100%. I got you. In terms of, your blog writing, do you think that's something that you would maintain throughout your career no matter what?
Yeah, I just started it, like I said, a couple of years ago, and I found that's really, really fun, really perhaps at this stage of my career, more fulfilling in a way because it's something different. It's something creative.
Yeah.
And I actually reach far more people and help more people doing this blogging thing than I do when I can care for 1 to 4 people at a time as an anesthesiologist. And so, the goal of my blog is certainly not to help people retire early unless that's what they really feel they need.
Sure.
But I would like to give people those options that we talked about and help people avoid just having money just siphoned out of their accounts because they don't really know how to manage money. And so I talk about investing in taxes and simple things that you can do to save more money and allow your money to grow faster.
Sure. And I know a lot of people are going to have questions in terms of building out these options for themselves, gaining financial independence. What is a way, or what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
I can be found on Twitter at Physician&nbsp. I have the email address pof@physicianonfire.com. And I've got a Facebook page and a profile under Milo Anderson with 2 S's because Facebook made me choose a real sounding name when they figured out Physician on Fire is not a legal name. So I'm pretty prolific online. You can also just comment on a blog post that you have a question about, and I'll probably respond there too. That's
great. Well, I have to thank you so much, Physician on Fire, with being with us. I think you provided very practical, pragmatic tips. I think they're extremely useful for people to listen to, and I'm going to provide all of that on our show notes, of course. And I thank you so much for your time. That was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and I always enjoy talking about this stuff, so glad to be here.
All right, well, take care.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Doc Podcast, the voice of fulfilled physicians. If you enjoyed the episode, please drop us a like, comment, and share. Share us through the social media channels we have on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The handle is at Happy Doc Podcast. That's at Happy Doc Podcast. You can find our website at www.thehappydoc.com. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Happy Doc, the voice of fulfilled physicians.